So this week, I want to talk to you about emergence. I've been getting all these downloads lately and seeing how there's something new arising. There's something new showing up on the planet that's never been here before in humanity. And it hasn't fully expressed itself yet. It's like it's in its infancy around it showing up. And so it's hard to see. And one of the best ways I see it is actually, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction, I see it in the desperation of those who are trying to hold on to the old ways. Like bombing Iran. Like, getting into a war. Well, we've done that before. There's nothing new going on there. And I know that's not happening here. It's happening in the States. Being from the States, it's very present for me when I see what goes on and how people behave and how they try to do what's always been done. And maybe it worked in the past, but it doesn't work anymore. And there are many of us who know that. And so because all this is going on in the Ukraine and in Israel and Iran and all these other places, and in the US and all these other places in the world, I see, okay, since this is here, let's look at the other end because it has to be there, and let's see what's arising, and what's arising is beautiful. So I wanted to walk you guys through today the awakening process. Because it's easy when you get into this teaching and begin to see some of the miracles that can show up in your life, that to trust it, right? It's easy not to trust it. It's easy to think, okay, it happened this time, but how do I know what's going to happen next time? And so what I notice is when people get into this teaching, and they start seeing their lives begin to shift, the actions that people actually take, and I did too when I was at the beginning of this, are old actions. For instance, a new relationship shows up out of nowhere. It didn't show up out of nowhere. You were in class or you were doing affirmational prayer and it was coming forth and you were beginning to feel that place in you of ownership around relationship, and then all of a sudden the perfect person shows up. And then you get into that relationship and lo and behold, how you start behaving is the way you always behaved in relationship. And then wonder why it didn't work out. That person was so perfect. They showed up through the affirmational prayer. They just showed up that way. And then all of a sudden things went south. We all experienced that when we first start applying these teachings. Because our tendency, our default, is to go back to acting as we always have. And even if it worked, and so we're really good at acting that way, ultimately, we still wind up feeling like there's something not fully right about it. I had this example for me when I was hired in Burbank, California. I mean, I had it a long time before that. This is just the last time I experienced it. This was the time I actually learned the difference. I could go back to when I first started showing up in Science of Mind classes and started applying this stuff, and in the midst of that got married. met the woman that I thought was the perfect woman for me, and we got together and we got married, and things started working in a particular way, and we built this incredible house on top of this mountain, and then things started falling apart. And I think that that happens. I mean, for me, it certainly is true. It may be true for others. I think that happens because one of the pieces that happens in this teaching is we become more and more our authentic self. And so at a particular period in time, we are as authentic as we could be in that moment. If we continue with these teachings, we become more authentic and realize that wasn't it. That was close. That's how I felt in Burbank. I showed up in Burbank in a suit and tie and got in there and acted. And so the job itself was incredible how it showed up. This is Los Angeles. In all of Los Angeles, there were only 3 Science of Mind centers. Now there's only 2. I think now there might only be 1. 2. But at the time I was there, I think there was 3, maybe 4. Either way, it was small compared to the millions of people that were there and all of the ministers looking for work who wanted to be in Los Angeles. And so when the Burbank church came up and I went in there, I felt like it really came out of nowhere that here was this, I had happened to move to LA where I never wanted to live anyway because of this one. This is why I moved to LA, not why I didn't want to live there. Just so we're clear. I like to be clear. And so I'm in LA, and I needed to find work, obviously, and I'm a minister, and there's just not a lot of positions available. This one becomes available. And I go and I apply and they wind up hiring me. And it was really felt like it came out of that higher consciousness that I got hired there. Well, the second I got in there, I started behaving as the manager, not as the spiritual leader. And I went in there and I instituted this, that, and the other thing. All the things because of all the different work I've done, and I've been successful at some of it, I've learned this is what works in business. And so I applied all those things, and I would come home every day and say to Ash, this is the closest I've ever come to feeling like I am in my right spot, except it still just feels like a day job. It doesn't feel right yet. And at the time, I couldn't see why. Of course, I was blaming the center and the people and everything outside myself. That's what we do, right? Or am I the only one who does that? And so in this teaching, as we move along in this teaching, we get to a certain level of trust in the miraculous. And then what I've noticed is most folks, that's as far as they get. So they get a miracle here and they get a miracle there, but then some things fall apart, some things work out. I mean, I've seen practitioners and ministers who are still in that area of, I sort of trust this. I kind of trust this. But I haven't, but they don't, I'd say 90% of the people in our movement don't get to a place of full embodiment of it. Because it's a different way of living. Once you get to where you have fully embraced that life unfolds from the divine and from your willingness to be in it with the divine, have that relationship of knowing your power and presence, of moving forward from this place of, I don't know what's going to happen next. Once you're willing to get beyond the strategic plans, the planning out, the ways of seeing life in the ways it's always been seen. Well, this worked in the past, so let's apply it here now. This is what we need. We need this system in place. We need this, we need that, and all those things. Well, that's what's always been done. And they work, so people want to keep doing it. Unfortunately, then what you get is the other side of the coin of what's always been done, which is wars, which is people trying to take power All the things that show up that we don't like are in that same realm of what's always been. So there's something new. There's this emergence that I've been feeling lately, and then I've been watching some folks. We have a few folks here who have taken this teaching to the edge, who have really taken it fully on and living their lives every day from a different way of seeing the world. And when that happens, the results they're getting aren't once in a while anymore. And so for me, my journey is after Burbank, I realized I was doing that. I was living in a partial place with a whole bunch of other people in our movement. That's what I was doing too. That's why Burbank didn't work out, is because I didn't approach it from an entirely new way of that I knew was possible, right? We get these glimpses, but then you got to move into it. And even when I got hired here, when I first showed up, my initial response was to manage, was to do it, use my experience to see what would work and not work. It took about a year of being here before I realized, wait a minute, I'm not doing anything new. I'm behaving the way I've always behaved. I need to shift here. And once I did, and I still am, this isn't like the process is over. I can just feel the continued deepening of this place of trust, of this place of knowing, right? That what's going to show up is exactly what's supposed to show up. Exactly what's supposed to show up, right? Like the song we just listened to. And that's the new, is when we start trusting on that level. And it's an entirely different level, right? So, and I applied here from that place. I told my authentic self. I showed up fully at the interviews. I didn't wear a suit to it. I've told you all this before, and and just did my best to be as authentic with them as possible. And continue. But then when I got here, felt that pull that we all get, or maybe I'm the only one, to just do things the way we know what was worked in the past, so we want to do it again. And there's nothing new there. There's nothing new there. What's new is when we move into this, right? If it's new, even the word itself says, you don't know what this is. You don't know what's going to happen. That's scary. That's why a lot of times when I'm up here, I'm telling you about courage. I'm talking about courage because that's what it takes to move into a place of something new. Now, the thing about this is, and what I've learned about this is that the practice called for that got me here is very ongoing. That's why I'm this broken record up here about take the classes. Because if you aren't involved on that level, then when you just step out and go, I'm just going to see if I can trust this, your embodiment isn't going with you. There's an embodiment. I mean, when I feel trust, I don't feel any fear around it. When I feel fear, I mean, even if I get a little nervous about something, I'm just at that edge, right? But I can feel it. That's the edge of my growth. And like I always say, it's like that yoga statement. You want to step into your stretch and smile. If you can't smile, you stretch too far. Pull it back until you can. So it's still a stretch, but maybe it's just a little one. That's where the edge is, and that's where you know your growth edge is, and that's the place in which you can then move forward and become greater than what you were previously, because that's where this teaching can take you. It can take you to a place where you are greater than what you were previously. And so that's what it keeps doing for me, right? But I'm not the only one. Ash, when she was back LA before we met, realized she needed to step into this new place of her beingness to attract the partner that she really envisioned herself being with. And so she said, this guy's going to have to drop in my lap. I showed up on her laptop when her laptop was on her lap. But, she knew that was the moment. And so when I sent her the initial message, she responded because she got it. It was like, oh, this is the one to respond to. And boom, that's how it grew from there, right? I'm looking at this place and I'm going, Canada? I don't want to move to Canada. No, I'm so glad I moved to Canada. Stepping into the unknown, right? That's what this is about. Stepping into that place where we don't know what's going to emerge next. And so I was talking to Enid this week, your board president. And she was telling me about, some of you may not know, but her and her husband used to own a restaurant called Juniper that went under. And she went through a lot of grief around that and has worked and has continued to take classes, continued to step forward, and continued to grow her consciousness. So recently, she gave me permission to tell you this. She was offered a job. She went on a job interview, and that she said was what they wanted her to do was exactly where she is in her authentic self right now. It was perfect. She didn't even know a job like that existed. She had just put out, this is what would be perfect for me, and it just showed up. I mean, literally showed up. She got a call. She didn't go looking for it. She didn't go trying to find it. And so then she goes on this interview, and she's talking to these people, the people who are looking to hire her, and they go, well, what did you do at Juniper that worked? And she says, you don't want to know. And they go, what do you mean? Is it a bunch of hooey stuff? And she says, yes, it was a bunch of hooey stuff. And then they hired her. They hired her because she was so powerful in her authentic self. That's living what it is we teach here. When you step out and you go, this is how I am expressing myself in the world. This is my authentic self. This is how I'm showing up. And it's real. It's in here. You have embodied it. The embodiment of it is a very different experience than kind of believing it, kind of having faith in it, kind of thinking that maybe this is going to work. But it takes decades for most of us. Taken me more than decades. I'm a slow learner. That's right, 97 jobs. And lots of relationships. This is my fourth marriage. I finally got it right. But what I got right was me, who I'm being. I have never felt so much aliveness in my beingness. This is new. It's new for me, and it's new for the planet in terms of now what's happening with your leadership here is they're looking at this way of being, this way of leading an organization. This is changes. It's a game changer. It's a world changer that we're starting right here with the emergence of what's happening here. So what I ask of you is to step up, to flower. My wife, she's been expressing to me, Ash has been talking a lot about the feminine rising. And I believe that, right? I believe that that's so much a part of this newness that's coming forth is this feminine rising, because it's rising in this whole new level of consciousness that's never shown itself before. This is not the same. And so when I look at Trump and I look at some of the other things going on, I said, that stuff doesn't even matter because it's going to fade away. There's something new happening here that's way more powerful, way more palpable, and holds the future in its hands. And so how many of you want to be on that ride? Well, to do that, you got to be in class. You got to be practicing this stuff. You got to show up in ways that maybe you haven't before, because that's what'll give you the ground and the strength to then step out in your life and make different choices. Choices you didn't even know you'd make because you feel it so deeply in your soul. The things that I do now are so embodied in my soul and so present. They come up and they're so alive for me that I am just astounded by what comes next. And that's what I hold for each one of you. This is what's possible, to be this kind of person on the planet, to be in that movement of the newness that's coming. I don't know fully what it's going to look like. Nobody does. But you can feel it if you step into it. You can feel it for yourself in your own life when you do something different that you've never done before. Enid had never done that before. Ash had never done that before. That's what it takes if all you're doing is what you've always done. There's nothing new there. So I invite you to step up, step forward, get involved in these teachings because they are alive with the beauty of what's possible for our future. For the future, this isn't just for you. Every one of us that steps up, that kind of new energy in the world is what will actually change the world. And so that's what's at stake here, and that's what we're working towards. And I know that we got something going on here that's never been done before. So let's do it together. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you, Cliff, for sharing your inspiration. And we are going to do things differently. We are.